This is a story of the wedding at the altar. Based on a real case. The struggle of a couple suffering for love, a meddling ex-girlfriend and a man who learns the hard way the consequences of divided feelings and finds true love, and a young woman who suffers for her lover but is finally rewarded with true happiness after overcoming him. Obstacles after obstacles. This story is titled, "Left her girlfriend at the altar and went back to her ex, and has greatly regretted her decision." The story takes place in the United States. It all begins in a school where two young people named Samantha and Charles study. Samantha is a young girl of 18 years old, a very beautiful young lady who was already finishing high school and thinking about going to college. Middle daughter of 6 siblings, she had a quiet life, a healthy childhood and loving parents who raised her with love, respect, and affection. Samantha was in love with a young man named Charles, 21 years old, a very handsome boy, with a good heart and full of charm, who studied in the same school as her. But the problem was that Charles was dating a young girl named Erica, 19 years old. Samantha and Erica had their differences, and there were many differences between these two girls, like light and darkness in a Titanic duel. Although they both studied in the same high school and were in the same grade, Samantha was an exemplary student. She got good grades, she was a good daughter who loved her family and respected her teachers, she helped her friends and classmates with their schoolwork and homework and was well liked by her friends and teachers, especially the teachers who admired the girl's performance and effort in her studies. Erica, on the other hand, was the opposite of Samantha and did not enjoy a good reputation. She was rebellious, got bad grades, did not like to study, was also used to cheating on her boyfriends and did not have many friends, and most of the other girls at school hated her a lot, mainly because of her habit of hitting on the boyfriends of other classmates, which made all the other girls want her head, and the teachers and professors constantly scolded the girl for her bad behavior. Even with all in these aspects, Erica was as beautiful as Samantha. It was even impossible to tell which of the two was the more beautiful, because the only difference was their personalities and life goals. Charles liked Erica and felt his heart beating for this girl, even with all his friends advising him to leave this girl because of her bad reputation as rebellious, unfriendly, and unfaithful. Samantha, when she found out that Charles was dating one of the worst students in the school, she decided not to feed that feeling anymore and dedicated herself to her studies and hobbies, and also not to get a bad reputation and watch over her reputation as a good girl and be a faithful friend and studying hard. 6 months later, Samantha learns the news that Charles had broken up with Erica due to a betrayal, which was nothing new, and Charles' world collapses, and only now she understood what her friends were saying and their warning about Erica. Samantha felt very sorry for Charles, but she could not deny that she was very happy with the end of this relationship and her rival was out of the way. Samantha did not waste her time and then started to get involved with Charles, sending her messages, love cards, and even messages from her friends telling her about her. Even Charles' friends liked Samantha and the girl's friendliness in making friends and had a great revulsion for Erica. Charles was quick to return Samantha's affection, and after a month of talking and getting to know each other, then the two young people decide to date. After a year and a half of dating, the two decide to get married. And since they had already finished high school and were already in a great financial situation, the money for the wedding and the party would be in charge of Charles. Everything was planned for the big day, with wedding dress, cake and party, which would be a unique day for the bride and groom. Samantha noticed that a week before, Charles seemed to be looking off into the distance, distracted, and as if he wasn't excited about the wedding. Samantha thought it was excitement for the big occasion. She decided not to care or worry about it. As the most important day of Samantha's life arrived, the young bride arrived at the church. She saw her friends and family excited and crying, but as she looked down the aisle she realized that the groom was not at the altar, and more than one. An hour later, an unknown man arrived at the bride with a letter written by Charles. In the letter he asked for forgiveness, and Charles discovered that even though Erica was his ex, he still loved her and that he would not marry any woman other than Erica. Charles had run off with Erica and didn't show up for the wedding. That moment, what was supposed to be a dream turned into a real nightmare. Samantha was devastated, and all the guests looked with pity at the girl who was left without a floor before that whole situation. Samantha starts to cry and goes into despair. What Charles did was inhumane and cruel. She cried during the nights waiting for Charles and having severe anxiety attacks. The girl goes into a deep depression and also shows a complete apathy for life. Then Samantha's family, seeing the horrible situation of the girl, decides to move out of that town and forget about that place and all that episode of that horrible day. At the same time, Charles and Erica celebrate their new beginnings and swear love to each other, and Erica says she is sorry, that she has changed and that she will always love him, but later this will turn out to be a big lie. 4 years passed and Samantha was now a new woman reborn as the legendary phoenix bird reborn from the ashes. She started playing sports and dedicating herself to studies. She finished college and was now a woman, free and independent. Even with the ordeal she went through, she remained a good person, and her friends, who always sent her letters and correspondence even in another city, still remembered her, thanks to the love of her family who supported her in all the bad moments of that unpleasant situation. The pain made her turn around and become an even better person. Samantha was single during that time, and not because she was waiting for Charles, but the fear and trauma of the experience of being left at the altar still had consequences. She didn't even remember Charles and was already thinking about opening her heart to a new love. But on a rainy night at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, someone knocks on your door. Thinking it was someone from your family, which would be very rare to come on a night and it was raining a lot, you came to visit her in the middle of the night. And to your surprise, amazement, and disbelief, it was Charles, her ex-boyfriend that fate even from afar put in her path once again, who was knocking loudly on her door in the middle of that rainy and noisy night. He was all wet, devastated, sad, desolate, and completely emotionally destroyed. Charles was on his knees and crying, and with a wedding ring, he said, "My life. My love. Forgive me. Please. I made a terrible mistake. Erica once again messed everything up. She definitely died for me. I know. I made you suffer and I want to make up for everything. I can't get you out of my head. Now I know that the one I really love is you. You are the true and only woman in my life." The heartbroken boy said that once again Erica betrayed him, and this time Erica was dead to him and killed any feelings for Erica in his heart and mind, because this last betrayal was beyond limits. He said that he was very remorseful, with a lot of remorse in his soul and heart, and that he wanted to somehow make up for all the damage he had caused. Samantha, still angry inside, treats Charles very well. She asks him how he found her and why he was there, and why he pursued her even in another city, but soon the woman begins to show indifference and refuses to accept Charles again, because she was still afraid that Erica's shadow was between them again or another woman, as she had already matured and recognized her value as a woman and as a human being. Charles assures that he already separated from Erica for good. Charles says that when he returned to his hometown where they lived, after Erica's betrayal, he decided to look for her and recover his love and affection, and when he found out that she had moved to another city, he became desperate and looked for her all this time until he found the city where Erica lived. He did not give up and kept looking for her and finally found her. He missed her so much, and that did not get him out of his mind and heart. Charles, in tears and very nervous, tells her that if necessary, he would marry her that very night, and he was firm, decisive, and sure in his decision. And that now Erica is dead forever in his life. In spite of everything, Samantha kindly and politely asks Charles to leave her house, even in that heavy rain. Charles is very upset, but understanding the girl's situation, and out of respect for her, he obeys and leaves, but believes that Samantha loves him and is only hurt by what he did. The rain was so heavy that Charles could even risk pneumonia, but he didn't care and took the risk for love. From that night, Charles never stopped looking for Samantha. He visited her every day, he sent her messages, gifts, flowers, and chocolates, and Charles tried his best and gave his best, and even tried to apologize to Samantha's whole family and apologize to everyone, and for all the suffering he caused, wanting not only Samantha back, but also that whole family. Samantha's parents and siblings were not very happy with Charles' return to their lives. But Charles was a human being like everyone else and subject to error, but from his mistakes and bad decisions he learned and matured, and he also suffered the consequences of being betrayed twice by the same woman. It hurt so much in his heart and soul, and he feared that Charles was still weak and divided. But Charles doesn't give up and says he wants to be happy by her side, to be her husband and build the family they planned. Day after day, Charles struggles to regain Samantha's love and trust, still does. Charles begged and cried a lot and wanted to correct his mistake. That if necessary, he even asked Samantha to hit him and take out all his anger and grudges, as a way to let out all his fury and anger, because for love, he would put up with it. He assures her that this time he won't make it and not fail her again. Charles says he wished he never went back to his ex, but now his heart belonged completely to Samantha. Charles says that they are still young and can rebuild their lives from scratch. Charles regrets the lost time and not marrying the great woman Samantha was. Samantha says she regrets everything that happened with Charles, but says she wouldn't be a second choice in her life or anyone else's life. Charles replies that she is not a second choice, but the woman in his life, and that his feelings for her are true, because he missed her so much, and that if he didn't love her, he wouldn't be looking for her and putting his face to the slap, and that it was never his intention to put Samantha through the worst day of her life or cause her so much suffering. And Charles replies that he didn't marry because he didn't want to be a cheating husband and that she was a good woman and didn't deserve him because he didn't want to cheat on her with Erica. Charles was adamant about going back to Samantha. He said that Samantha was the woman of his life and without Samantha, his life had no more meaning. The man was really willing to do anything to win back the girl's heart and love. He would not give up for anything, persevering and not faltering in his purpose. But Samantha became a real woman of stone and did not give up, but the man's persistence was also strong. Hour after hour, day after day and month after month, the man did not falter in his purpose, which was to get back the woman who truly belongs to his heart. After a long time of Charles' persistence and to everyone's disappointment, Samantha gives him a new one. Samantha gives him a new and last chance, because even with the passage of time, Samantha still harbored feelings for Charles, and seeing all the effort that the boy was doing, she thought she should leave the wounds in the past and forgive him. And the young man, seeing this opportunity and to the surprise of all those who did not believe in Charles' intentions, the boy does everything for his beloved Samantha, takes the girl to restaurants, walks with her in cinemas, has breakfast in bed and even cleans the house to leave Samantha free and in peace, because deep down Charles felt very guilty and did everything possible to repair all his mistakes and redeem himself with the love of his life. And after months of regaining lost trust, they decide to get married, but this time in a simple ceremony reserved only for family, friends, and former schoolmates. When the wedding day arrives, Samantha calls a friend to see if Charles was at the altar this time, and yes, he was there with his custom-made suit just for that day and waiting for Samantha. The boy was anxious and very excited for his beloved to become his wife and finally be happy. But the bride does not arrive and the guests look at Charles. After an hour the guests start to get up to leave. Charles desperately asks them to stay, because the bride would not be long, and after another hour and a half of waiting, the bride's car arrives. Charles is relieved, because unforeseen events happen, but soon he sees that inside was only the chauffeur, who goes to Charles and hands him a letter from Samantha to Charles. The chauffeur says that his fiancée had left her and that he was only obeying orders. Charles opens the letter and on it was written, "Charles, do you think coming to my door at 3 a.m. on a rainy night would make me come back to you? Pain you caused me 4 years ago. To this day I have not fully recovered from this suffering. My soul is crying and my heart is bleeding. The tears you are crying now, I cried too. And I also write the part of the letter where you said you would never marry another. There was a woman who was not Erica, his ex, and that is what hurt my soul the most, the day she left with her ex and you only wanted her back because she cheated on you. Otherwise you'd still be there with her, like a dog on a leash. I forgave you a long time ago. But I don't want to marry you anymore. Your friendship is enough for me. Good luck, Carlos. I wish you the best and may life help you and bless you. Bye-bye. Charles." Reading this letter, Charles cries desperately and is very sad, and his heart breaks in pieces. Only now he felt and understood what Samantha felt when she was abandoned and betrayed at the same time. The feeling of guilt was so big that not even with anger Charles towards her, since he was the one who started all this sequence of events and all this emotionally and without listening to reason, and that detail of Erica said in that letter hurt him in his soul, and that Samantha kept in the back of his mind, just for that moment. It was like a knife in his heart and a sword in his soul, because in reality he revealed the biggest mistake of his life that he had made that day. He hated Erica and saw that leaving everything for her was his biggest mistake, and realizing what it is like to go through that situation, and that it is not Samantha's fault or Erica's fault, but his own fault for the wonderful woman who could have been his wife, he blamed himself and said he loved Samantha. And look of all the guests who saw him in that situation, some guests sympathized with Charles' pain. The man was very angry with himself for what he did and saw that Samantha was not to blame for anything. The only one to blame was him. But 1 hour later, right at the end, to the surprise of Charles and the incredulous guests, because for them and Charles it was all over right there, Samantha arrives in her wedding dress, bouquet of flowers and all, radiant as a true angel of light. And Samantha says, "Charles, forgive me. But I needed to do this, because even with your efforts to get me back, I was still very unsure of your feelings for me. I was hiding, watching everything, and I saw that your regret was sincere and true. But I need to ask you, are you sure this is what you want? Because from here our future will be defined, and my wish is that it will be forever." Charles couldn't hold back his tears or his emotions and says he felt what he did, and he still loved Samantha, because she was the real woman of his life, because true love forgives everything, except a betrayal for the second time, a clear hint to his ex-girlfriend Erica, and he accepts it as one more ordeal, and that it was deserved and fair, and he says he deserved it. He needed to feel the pain of his beloved to know what she suffered, and feeling the pain of abandonment, he saw how cruel and inhuman he was and regretted what he did to his beloved in the past. He felt the shame of having done a girl who loved him and was not to blame for his mistakes and bad decisions. But just as Samantha forgave him for his elopement with his ex, Charles also forgives what Samantha just did. Because that really didn't compare to the time lost with Erica and her betrayals. Then Charles, his eyes filled with tears of joy and very emotional, goes up to Samantha and gives her a tight hug and a very passionate and daring kiss. Then the two are married on the spot and forgive each other, swearing loyalty and fidelity to each other. The guests are left in disbelief at this strong and emotional scene. So Charles and Samantha end up together. Because, in fact, deep down she really loved him. And Charles loved her too. After all this, Charles went on to advise people about toxic relationships, that dwelling on it was a pure waste of time, since he lost it with his ex and understood that people, men and women, like Erica never change, they just temporarily become what we want. He fell into the trap saying that she changed and would change. It was a total mistake and a waste of time, as much as he understands that everyone deserves a second chance like he had. But unlike Erica, he knew how to value, and today Samantha is his life, and he loves her, and without her, his life has no more sense, because she is an incredible woman, faithful, his friend and companion, and that people like Erica should be cut out of our lives at the first betrayal, because he lost time and those 4 lost years could have been better used. That is your biggest regret, having wasted time with the wrong person, while the right person was by your side, and you almost lost it for an illusory love, because true love was and always was Samantha. And learn to value the people who truly love us. Charles felt the pain of Erica's betrayal twice, and that made him not want for others what he suffered. It didn't take long for Charles and Samantha to have a child, and the baby's arrival touched the hearts of the passionate couple even more. They were happy with this new blessing in their lives, which made the couple's union stronger with a lot of love, trust, and respect above all. But the surprises did not end there. 1 year later, Charles is at home, on a day off from work, taking care of the house and his baby, and someone knocks on his door, and to the man's surprise, it was precisely Erica, his unfaithful ex-girlfriend that once again fate put in his way as a kind of sick and final test. It is not known by what means he kept looking for Charles in another city. She looked pretty bad person, smelling of liquor and all disheveled. She started asking for another chance and asked to come back. Because a rich and influential woman found out that she had an affair with her husband and destroyed her reputation in her hometown with her influence, money and power, and she can't even get a job because of this millionaire woman's influence in the city. And Erica was not even ashamed to know that Charles was now a married man. But Charles this time was firm and strong. He was now a man who loved his wife and son, and he was determined to protect and defend his family, marriage and relationship tooth and nail, and even with his own life if necessary, like a lion defends his clan, did not make him give in to Erica's compliments. In front of Charles, the ex who ruined his life and Samantha's life was in front of him again. And Charles looks at Erica with a smirk and says, "Erica, apparently you'll never change. You're still the same shameless little minx from our high school days. It's hard to believe that a person like you was ever a part of my life. I count, you ruined my life, Samantha's life. Now you want to ruin my happiness? No way. I remember you as the worst mistake of my life, and I learned what love is with Samantha. She is my wife and she has my son. You two today are my greatest adoration. I know now I would never have been happy with you. I would be an eternal man betrayed with you, and that I am sure Samantha never will. She is faithful to me and I to her, and neither to you, and with no one will I ever change the woman of my life. And you are a page turned that I already tore out of my book of life. And you won't ruin me again. I started a new story and there's no place for you in it. Get out of my life. And Samantha's life. Go away and never appear in front of me again." And after he uttered those words, Charles kicked Erica out mercilessly and slammed the door in her face. After what happened? Samantha comes home with the groceries, and Charles, as a show of trust and love, tells his wife everything that happened in his absence and Erica's courage in looking for him. Samantha is amazed and sees her husband's confidence, so the two embrace and kiss, and their son is together. And so ends the story of Charles and Samantha, maintaining a relationship of love, affection, and mutual respect and mutual fidelity to each other, showing the true power of love. Moral of the story: if your ex or your cheating ex shows up weeks before the wedding asking you to come back saying he is sorry, that he has changed and will no longer fail, and with a smile on his face, don't believe. These types of cheating, fake, lying, naive people never change. They just temporarily become what the person wants, and the good person who would be by your side. This most of the time, 99% of the time, you no longer recover. And, usually, 1% learn their lesson when they can recover and make no more mistakes. Don't start the next chapter of your life by reliving the past. Move on. And never trade the present for the past.